Wednesday, August 2nd, and we have regrets today from Mayor Panko, who is away, and I'm the chairperson today. My name's Councillor Lorraine Allen, and I will ask CEO Morris to introduce staff that are with us at this meeting today, please. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We have with us this evening our Director of Corporate Services, Carrie Costello, who is acting as the clerk this evening. We have Director Art Manhire, our Manager of Economic Development, Julia Crowder, and I believe that's it for this evening. Thank you.
On August 2nd, we acknowledge that this sacred land on which Smiths Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We're grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We're also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. We're mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. Are there any amendments to today's agenda? Seeing none. Councillor McGuire, go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I propose that we add 8.6, proposed amendments to the bylaw to adopt an election signage policy for the town of Smiths Falls with the consent of the committee.
May I see approval? Okay, thank you. Yes, and we may be adding some others after our in-camera today as well. There are no adoption, there's no delegation this afternoon, and there's no adoption of minutes, but we have one report, and that's with CEO Morris.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. So I wanted to provide committee with a very brief update on the progress that we're seeing throughout the province with the extended producer responsibility for the Blue Box program. As committee is aware, Smiths Falls, as well as many other municipalities, will be transitioning to a producer-led or paid program starting next July 1st. I can tell you there's much work to be done before July 1st rolls around. So there is a group that represent industry. It's called Circular Materials Ontario. And we've reached out to them to discuss a potential Blue Box collection contract. So that they're responsible for providing collection systems throughout the province. So once we have those initial discussions, really at this point, we need to understand what their expectations are, what their service standards are. And of course, we would want a system that represents full cost recovery for the town of Smiths Falls. So we have a few things to sort out with them, and I expect this autumn we'll bring back a report and recommendation on how we'll proceed in preparation for next July 1st. So it's an active file, and I'll have much more to tell you later in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Does anyone have comments or questions before we leave this? I see none. Okay, we have no correspondence items this afternoon, but we do have in-camera issues. So I need a motion to move into camera. In camera with Councillor Brennan, seconded with Councillor Dwyer. All right, in favor? Okay. Just be a second before we move in, and we shouldn't be too long.
Just hold tight until I get the go ahead.
Are we back live now, Carrie?
I'm just waiting for, oh, we are good. You can resume discussion.
Thank you for your patience this afternoon. We had two matters, and the rising report in the first one was council gave direction on a litigation matter, and the second one was council gave a matter of disposition of land, and that's going to be coming forward as 8.7, bylaw 8.7 this afternoon. And thanks again for your patience. So now we will move on to our priority issues. 8.1 is the first one, and that's Russell Street Parquet Sidewalk and Sole Source Procurement Report 2022-115. And that's with Economic Manager and Tourism, Julia Crowder. Welcome, Julia.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to Council. The report before you is with regards to an update with the Russell Street Parquet. We are asking Council to authorize sole source supply for Kavanaugh construction for hardscape components with regards to the Russell Street Parquet, as well as the sidewalk reconstruction project. Earlier in the year, we brought forth a report to Council with regards to a grant application for the parquet. Council asked us to go back to quote for the sidewalk, which was out of scope of the project at the time. We were able to obtain a quote from Kavanaugh for the hardscapes for the parquet, as well as the sidewalk reconstruction. And we were able to speak to the program administrator and ask that the cost of the sidewalk be included in the parquet grant application as well. So at this point, there would be no cost to the taxpayers or the town in order to include the sidewalk as part of the parquet project. So I'm happy to answer any questions or any clarification from council at this time.
Thank you for that. I see Councillor McGuire is going to start us off. Go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks a lot, Julie. It's exciting to see this come forward and six-figure funding to have it done. I don't know if I'm sold on the smoke finish concrete base. I think the interlock and pavers, they tie into Becker Street from a design perspective. They've got the look. I don't know how dark the smoke is going to be, if it's going to have a heat island effect. And I know the pavers are a mix of light and dark, so it solves that problem. I'm wondering if Beckwith is coming in under budget, and this is more a question for CEO Morris, since we don't have Paul. Do we know if Beckwith's coming in under budget to be able to cover this as part of the Becker Street contingency to keep it under budget?
Through the chair, it's a bit early to make that determination. There's a lot of work to be done. I can tell you that the work that's more difficult to quantify is finished, and I would say we're on track. The rest of the work is fairly well defined, and there shouldn't be too many variances. But at this point, it would be premature to say that we're going to have money left over. The suggestion you're making is about $30,000 difference. So it may be that we have extra monies, but my advice is always look at each project individually and try and fund it individually. And if we have an overage in one and under expenditure in another, it sort of balances out in the end. But at this point, I wouldn't necessarily recommend we count on a surplus within Beckwith.
Thanks. So I would support spending the $30,000. I think we've already got $100,000 for it. So it would be good for that corner and tie it into Becker Street well.
Thank you, Councillor McGuire. Councillor Dwyer, I think you had your hand up. Go ahead.
I did tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair. Julia, I don't have any problems with the concept of sole sourcing it to Kavanaugh, and the value seems consistent with what we're seeing in other market pricing. I do, kind of like Councillor McGuire, have some reservations about kind of how this is all going to tie together. I mean, my hope is that we're not just going to have kind of a giant concrete slab with some chairs on it. Can you remind me what the comprehensive landscaping plan was for this site? Are we going to have decent sized well pits for landscaping, stormwater runoff of all this brushed concrete, trees, landscaping, something to soften it?
Sure. Through you, Madam Chair. So there are planter boxes that are being built in order to support all the plant material. So there are 6 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot planter boxes that will flank the space. And then there'll be 2 more 6 foot by 2 foot by 4 foot planter boxes that will incorporate lower lining plants. The larger planter boxes that will flank the actual parkette space will have larger trees in it that will grow up to about 6 feet tall and 6 feet wide, that will provide some canopy shade. The interior planter boxes will have lower lining plants because we don't want to take away from the viewscape of the mural from the sidewalk. And then there'll be benches that go on either side of each planter to provide seating, as well as a large accessible picnic table that will go right in the middle, that will be round. So everything will be linear except for the picnic table that will be round. So most of the concrete itself will actually be covered by either planter boxes or benches. And the reason why we chose to go with a color, this smoke color, which is kind of a smoky gray, is to delineate the space. We would like interlock stone pavers, but as you can see, the cost of $60,000 is 3/4 of the budget that was approved. So we don't have the financial means in order to do that unless council wants to dip into some tax reserve in order to pay for that. So that's why we went with the compromise based on the pricing that we got. The colored brush concrete delineates the new parkette space, provides a different color that's not concrete, so it won't look the same as the actual sidewalk, and also allows us to pay for the sidewalk as part of the project rather than, again, dipping into tax funding reserves. So I thought it was a really good compromise.
Thank you. And through you, Madam Chair, yeah, I appreciate the response, and I appreciate having the picture round out of what this is going to look like. I don't disagree with the staff recommendation for sourcing this work, but I would like to see the town start to think a little bit more about depaving our environments, especially our public spaces. You know, we undertook a fantastic project with Rideau. They came in, they ripped up an awful lot of asphalt and created some meaningful green space. I would like to see that same principle echoed in other public spaces that we're creating, but if this is too far down the line, I'll accept it as is.
Thank you. Councillor McKenna, I think Councillor Brennan's hand was up first, but I'll have you right after him. Councillor Brennan, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. I support staff's recommendation for this.
Thank you. Councillor McKenna, go ahead.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I couldn't hear you.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I support staff's recommendation on this, and thank Julia and the team for the work on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alfred, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I'm excited to see this parkette come into being. I support the sole sourcing. It makes sense on several levels to do that with Kavanaugh. I understand Councillor McGuire's wanting the pavers and the look of them and some of the benefits that but I thought about this for a little while, and I have yet to see any pavers that haven't either lifted in our cold climate or sunk. And so I hope that this parkette is going to last for years and years without that kind of problem. I'm okay. I'm not against pavers, but I'm also with, I know Beckwith Street Phase 1 came in on budget, and I'm expecting that this will come in on budget, Phase 2. So if there is no identifiable, and even if they did, I would say that the money should go towards the sidewalk. But then that still wouldn't leave my main street project enough money to do the pavers or the stamped concrete. So I'm fine with staff's recommendations on both counts.
Councilor McGuire, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to note that the pavers would be the same as on the corners of Beckwith Street. So if we've got functional issues with that, which I don't think we have, they did really well through the last winter. But yeah, for the consistency of the space, we're spending the extra money at the town square. I think this space needs to be tied into Beckwith, not delineated from it. So spending $30,000 when we've got $100,000 grant in the grand scheme of things, I think would be a good choice, or at least worth hearing back from staff on if we've got that money in other surpluses. So I think it's a missed opportunity. And if there is anything underneath those pavers, they're a lot easier to pull up and put back down if maintenance is required underneath that site. So I think long-term, it's the way to go, but that's my 2 cents.
Councillor Dwyer, he's already commented on this, so I guess it's just me. I like this idea. I think it's going to be a big improvement from that corner the way it is right now. And I also think it will be a meeting place. I like the idea of the pavers. I'm not against having us wait a bit and see if we can tie it in more to the Beckwith Street and see if the budget, but it seems to be that we're the minority in this. The other thing that I wanted to compliment you on, Julia, and I'm very happy to have read this, that the accessibility committee was considered, because the what was it called? The hardscape components that were going to be blocks, that would have really been very unaccessible to many people. So I'm glad that we looked at that, and I'm sure I'll be happy to pass that on to the accessibility committee as well. Any last comments before we leave this? Okay, thank you. Now, Julia, in terms of coming back to us, is that a possibility, or did you want us? It seems to me there's a majority don't want the pavers, or is it something? Go ahead, CA Morris, you might answer the question.
Yeah, so I would just advise committee that there is a degree of time sensitivity, because the contractor is going to start mobilizing shortly. So we'll need to make a rather quick decision on whether we go concrete or pavers. I mean, we can have a look at the Beckwith project, but I think if the direction, if committee wants pavers, we can circle back in the next few days to advise how we could pay for it. But it won't be through the grant.
Show of hands of people who would just rather go ahead and get going on with the concrete and get this done. Raise your hands. Okay, so it looks like we have a majority to do that. So thank you for that. Okay. Next priority issue is the 8.2 draft procedural bylaw report. And this is with Director Costello.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Director Costello.
So I just checking the motions regarding the previous item. My apologies. I'm playing the clerk tonight as well. So the Julia's report, CAO Morris, or Julia's still on the call. Is that to come forward this evening? It is on the bylaws set or on the agenda 7.3. So that will come forward this evening, as is then, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Okay. So procedural bylaws. So I wanted to bring forward an update for council and kind of keep the momentum going on the bylaw. So what this report does is kind of formalizes all the decisions that council has made to date. regarding the hybrid meeting option, some of the discussions we've had about roles and responsibilities, as well as put together a report for all of you using track changes. My apologies, I know it's not the cleanest version, but I wanted to use track changes so that all of you could see the changes that were made and see kind of the updating as we progress through this. The one item that we did proceed getting legal advice on was regarding the item that Councillor McGuire brought up regarding reducing the age on boards and committees. So in the report, you will note it's item number 3, that voting members of local boards under the Municipal Act must be eligible to vote in a municipal election. So as all of you know, that requires a person to be 18 years of age or more. However, a number of municipalities provide for youth members on boards. And an example that was given to us was regarding Port Hope. So youth members are typically allowed to attend meetings and participate in discussions, but don't have a vote. So that is an option if council wants to have youth members on a board. What legal counsel has advised is that anybody as a youth member under the age of 19 or under the age of 18, excuse me, depending on what the terms of reference say for each of those individual boards and committees or advisory committees that we have, that youth members could be appointed to advisory committees and could be voting members, but terms of reference would have to be amended to be able to do that. So there are some options there for council if they wish to have youth membership on some of our various boards and committees, and that would be done examining each of the terms of reference. As well, we looked at the consent reports as well as consent agenda, and that was all discussed at a previous meeting. So all of those changes have been incorporated into the draft you see in front of you. So for tonight, like I said, we have the draft from where it sits right now with all of the discussions we've had. And as well, the report does reflect what the next report will bring forward to all of you, and that is the different schedules. Some of these you're already familiar with. A petition policy is a new, something new we don't already have. Staff council relations policy, this is not new. This is something we've had for quite some time. We'll delve into motions. There's going to be a section specifically dedicated to motions. Delegation information, again, this is something you're all quite familiar with. We have our delegation package we send out for delegates coming to council, as well as we have the declaration of interest form. That's not new, that's something we've been using, as well as an inaugural meeting agenda. All of these, so like I said, some new, some are old, but some do require some updating. So that's what will be brought forward at our next procedural bylaw update. So basically, I'll answer any questions you may have regarding the bylaw as it sits today, as where we're at, and or if there's anything you'd like to see discussed in more detail, maybe when we bring forward the next report. But happy to answer any questions that you may have. Or if there's anything you found that doesn't line up in the draft bylaw, please bring to my attention so we can get it fixed.
Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I only have 2 points. One, Carrie, I think is an irregularity. And I would ask for you to kind of take a look and provide commentary on your interpretation of the policy.
Certainly.
So the first one is in section 11.1, and it talks about the bylaw approval process, but it seems to contradict the procedure for the consent agenda, in that any member or any bylaw rather would be read in full 3 times before being passed. So for example, if you took a part lot control bylaw, which would normally be considered as a consent item, you would have to read each bylaw 3 times, which, given this hasn't been a major issue at this point because we don't do that many townhomes, but I mean, the next phase of Bellamy Farms is going to be all townhomes. You know, you could have 16 part lot bylaws all at once, and then you're going to be reading the new legal descriptions for each bylaw 3 times before it's passed. So I think what's missing is just a exception provision for the consent agenda that provides the option for it to be pulled and read 3 times, but otherwise it would just be treated as part of the consent agenda. The second section, Madam Chair, is section 8.6. And this is something that is drastically different than how we operate today, but is taken directly out of the Carleton Place bylaws. So the way the bylaw is written right now, anyone within the community could register as a delegation, which is very different than how we treat delegations. And I went back and double checked their definitions to make sure that I had this right. So it would be any member of the community could register the Monday prior to the meeting, which in our case is the same day as the meeting. In Carleton Place, it's the day before the meeting. But any person could register and speak to the item for 10 minutes. They have 10 minutes to just say whatever's on their mind. You can only register to an item on the agenda, but essentially beyond that, the floor is yours for 10 minutes. And at the end of the 10 minutes, then somebody else could speak to it. And there's a limit of 2 people per item. And I just worry, because this is new to us, that this is going to, that this is not something that we consider to be part of open and transparent government. And I feel like at election time, it always comes up, the idea of how we're going to better facilitate public engagement in the public meetings. And the idea of floating, a 5-minute question period at the end of an agenda always comes up, just like Montague does. But I don't think that I'm prepared to recognize up to 2 additional speakers to every item on our agenda, regardless of what they're there to speak about. I think it's just going down a path that is not productive. I think there are better ways for the community to engage meaningfully in discussions about items on the agenda. And I think to some extent, our existing policy, which allows people to file as a delegate and speak at the beginning of the meeting and provide their information, is a better format than providing it within the meat of the agenda. Those are the only 2 items that I flagged within the procedural bylaws.
Carrie, did you want to comment on that, Councillor Carrie? Director Costello?
I mean, I'll take council's direction if council would like me to research maybe some different methods of delegations. I can certainly do that and bring that forward to the next meeting. It's every municipality, not every municipality, but there's probably many that do it differently, and I'm happy to provide some different ideas or different versions for council's review.
Okay,
And that would actually frame the discussion at the next meeting very well when we're looking at the delegation request form. So
great.
I'm happy to do that.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan, do you have comments or questions?
No, I want to thank Carrie for all the work you've done. I think I calculated thus far, I think we've debated this particular bylaw, which is very important, for about 5 hours. 5 hours. And so we're at a good point here, I think. On the only question I had, or I don't have, but the only matter that sort of was outstanding for me was the committee makeup and the ages that Councillor McGuire had suggested. I think that the Port Hope model is valid. I only hope that you can attract youth. We have a youth counselor program that I think we've agreed to keep, and so the uptake of that, has not been the best sometimes, but I think when it has happened, it provide great value to the youth. And I also like the idea that Councillor Dwyer just put out, that it would be great to explore how different municipalities engage and include taxpayers in their meetings, and how to facilitate that in an orderly way. I think that's important as well. But other than that, I look forward to the next discussion.
Anyone else? Councillor Alfred, go ahead.
I have a few notes based on this. I'll try to go through them as quickly as possible. 4.3.8, we had discussed this one before and you had reassured us that this was only for council meetings, not committee of the whole meetings, but that's not the way it reads.
No, that was a point that was brought up, and I will make that more clear.
Okay, thank you.
When I make the update.
Thank you. And in 6.4, I think you now have the committees at the pleasure of council rather than not for the term, those
That's
appointments.
Yep.
Thank you, appreciate that. And I'm not sure where this comes in. I believe it's in committee of council structure and reporting is the title of it. Right now, I mentioned this once before, I think, that there is no reporting by members on their attendance at the committees to which they are appointed. Before the last election, the town hall published how many meetings people had attended for council and cow, but there is never any accounting for, which is half the work, or in some cases more than half the work of a council member. So I think we should incorporate somewhere in there in terms of transparency, maybe perhaps Carrie, the chair of that, whatever committee it is, can forward information to you on the attendance at those committee meetings. With regard to motions, and I'm looking at 10.2 and 10.7, some of those things, I've struggled all along with how we have to read these things 4 times. I could see reading it twice. The mover should be able to read it first and second, and I don't think it has to be repeated by the mayor. And then third, allow for discussion, but again, the mover can read for third reading and vote. I see this as somewhat of a waste of time, particularly in longer motions, why we have to read it 4 times. So if I can find no reason we do it, and I've seen other councils, they do first, second, and third all at once. So I think we should do some work on there because that would streamline our meetings. Also 10.7, there's some things that if we're going virtual, it says shall contain signatures of mover and seconder. So we may have to
That's a great catch. Yep, thank you.
Figure out some of those things.
Yep.
10.19.1, we refer to IE development permits, but I'm not sure that applies anymore. And I would 11.1.9, I would refer to them as the acting mayor, not the deputy mayor. We don't elect deputy mayors in Smith Falls.
Which clause is that again, Councillor Alford?
11.1.9.
Okay.
And the 12.1, we refer to notification. It has to be in one local paper as public notification that's okay as long as in the future we still have that option, but I think there should be a second option, okay, whether it's posted on our website somehow, or that can't be the only way in which we notify. And the other, again, back to the committees of council structure and reporting, we should have in there something about an orientation for people on the committees. I think we talked about that one other time, but it needs to be enshrined so that it happens. And with regard to I would just say, Carrie, if we're going to go virtual and there are absolutely no limits on it, just some of the language would need to change in some of these things. And I'm going to take one last comment, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, to again reiterate my objection to having no time limits on participating virtually and particularly without public consultation. And I took what some of my colleagues had said the last time, and I know my colleagues disagree with me, But without limits attached, there is no recourse during the term of council. And it means that someone can own or rent here in Smith Falls and not actually be here for months or at all during a 4-year term. I see that as a grave mistake. And particularly when I think back to the beginning of the pandemic, if there were to be an emergency, a declared emergency in our town, like Elmont or Carleton Place, or someone like that, and whoever is participating virtually is not boots on the ground here, then that worries me. Having participated, gratefully so, in one of the emergency desktops that we did with all of the principals, that how we handled that and how we participated in that makes me think that our electorate expects us to be here, and we should expect that we are here to respond as leaders of the community. This sets the stage for the fact that, and you can say it's worst case scenario, but that's what all rules are designed to do, is guard against worst case scenarios. Anyways, Carrie, that is my that's my thoughts. Some of them, most of them,
Thank you.
on some of the language. If we're going virtual that way, some things will have to change in there.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you, Councillor Alford.
Councillor McGuire, did you have your hand up? Councillor McGuire, did you have your hand up?
Thanks, sorry, Madam Chair. I couldn't hear quite well. I agree with most of what Councillor Alford said, except for the online meeting stuff. The 4.3.8 was in my notes too, with the I don't think it was our consensus at the last meeting to have it apply to cows. So if we can get that cleaned up.
Certainly.
Just some clarity on some of the definitions with the advisory committees voting on municipal matters. I think if we clean that up a little bit, what municipal matters are, just so that the advisory committees can still vote and send us their recommendations. Cleaning up the definitions with the definitions for committees, boards. We've still got a few different wordings there. If we can get all that matched with our definition section, I think it'll make a stronger document out of it. I think we need to find a way to go with an online notification system. I don't think the money we're spending for the ads in the newspaper is good value anymore, and I don't even know that it'll be a long-term option. So I'd love to see if we could get something there parallel. That would be great. Anyway, thank you very much, Director Costello.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Councillor McKenna, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I know we do better when we're reach consensus. So I too do not want to keep reading motions and have them repeated by the mayor over and over and over again. If there's a way we can make that more efficient, I'm behind Councillor Alford's suggestion. I'm also supportive of her suggestion regarding just full disclosure on our committee involvement and attendance at those meetings. And otherwise, I'm fine for now. Thank you.
Anyone have any other comments?
That gives me some great content for the next report.
I'm going to turn my volume up to see if I'm being heard better now. So, can you hear me better? No?
No, we could hear you.
Okay. Okay.
Just if you get away from the microphone, we're having trouble. Yeah.
Okay, I'll try not to do that. Thank you. I agree with the idea of motions. In fact, tonight, it's interesting that we've talked about this because tonight, Bennett got me ready for today, and beginning of our meeting, we're going to be doing the reading 3 times, and then Director Costello did the last part of our meeting with me, and we're going to be doing first and second reading and then third. So I agree with my colleagues. It seems to me it's a necessary thing to have to do it and that take up that much time of your meeting. Better to spend that time discussing things and moving on to important matters. Are there any other comments? I do want to say thank you to Director Costello, though, because I think it's long overdue. I mean, I've been here for 12 years and we've had lots of issues that we chat about, but we just didn't get around to putting it all together in this kind of package you have for us. So, and can you explain to us how is it going to work? I just was thinking about this on the weekend. How is it going to work if I'm the only one virtually of council members participating virtually and everyone else is in the chamber? Will there be like a screen at one point where that person will just look like they're part of the rest of the horseshoe?
Yeah, it'll all be part of the new audio visual system that we're going to have upstairs. So you'll be able to see the people who are in the council chambers, and they will be able to see you as well. So it's the way that it's been explained to me, it would be like you were still sitting in the council chambers.
Thank you for that. Mm-hmm. Councillor McGuire, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Sorry, I forgot to comment on the youth stuff with my notes, but I don't support the Port Hope model just because they specify youth member. I'd like to see youth participating on committees that they can play a full role in. Overwhelmingly from the past student counselors I've spoken with, the feedback that they give from their experience is that it was great to be at the table, but it wasn't really a meaningful role because they never had that vote, and it was a lot of time to put into something that didn't that they couldn't have a tangible influence on. So I agree with most of it, just in the context of advisory committees. I think we can leave boards and things under the Municipal Act out of it, but on the advisory committees, we can give them a full active role.
Thank you all very much. That gives me a lot of direction and content for my next report.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to priority issue 8.3, Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare Report 2022-113. And that's with Director Manhire. Welcome, Art. Go ahead.
Welcome, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. So as you mentioned, today is about the Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare Program, and it's opting into that program. It's commonly known in the media as the $10 a day childcare program, which is designed for preschool children. And as the operator, we need to let the county and the province know that we are looking to opt into this system. The province is still working through the finer points in terms of what this really means, but essentially what it does is it provides or will provide at the end of the phased in program $10 a day childcare for preschool childcare for parents and families, and we are looking to be a part of that service so that we add value to people in our community. So what we're looking for this evening is just for council to endorse that so that we can let the province know, then we will fill in the application and the process. We're in the midst of recruiting for expanded space. We do anticipate that there will be increased space. The county is looking at the number of spaces available and then the demand for space. And there is a waiting list for virtually every program in the county. So the added space will be very welcome by people in the community, especially as we go to potentially increased demand.
Go ahead. Comments.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I fully support it. It's exciting. Thanks, Director Manhire. I've got two questions that I got with this on the agenda this week. And the first is, how does this affect our Thurber Street operations, and why are they not open right now, and what needs to happen there to get them open again? And the second is, will the $10 a day childcare have any effect on our full-time versus part-time employees? Will we need more part-time to keep costs down, or do we foresee any effects in that area?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. There will be, Thurber Street has not opened for the full-time through COVID, but it will be. So we are in the midst of ensuring that the province comes and does their inspection. So we're ready to go for September. We have been using the facility on and off for school age programs. In terms of the staffing piece, it does mean that we need to hire people for this, and there will be additional spaces provided through Thurber Street, and that will help to provide those extra spaces that the province is looking for in terms of buying into this program with the feds. So we're contributing in that way, and as well as to the community as a whole. So it will be open as of September. As I said, we're recruiting at this point, and we'll be in a position to be able to have it going for September.
Great. So just so I understand, Thurber Street is a staffing shortage, not a funding shortage of why it hasn't been operational.
That's correct. Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to speak in support of this recommendation, and we've discussed it at the county. It's a wonderful example of the federal and provincial and municipal governments coming together, and regardless of their political affiliation, to support a critical, we're an emerging, growing country. It's a critical public service. And I can't say how wonderful it is that we're investing in children, and in particular families who have to work to get by today. So I'm absolutely delighted to see this come to fruition, and do encourage my colleagues to support it. There's another piece in there. It's relevant, but there's also a minimum wage that's going to be paid to the employees. Unfortunately, including Smith Falls and all of Lanark County service providers, already pay above that minimum. So it won't have necessarily an impact in that sense. But they have, if there's places in Ontario where the floor is lower than that minimum, they'll have to bring it up. And I do hope other childcare providers get on board and sign on to this critical piece. There is a lot more, as you read in the report, there's more administration involved. But again, they've thought this through, and there's additional dollars to come to the providers to help cover the cost of that additional reporting. So I'm delighted to support this, and thanks, Director Manhire, for bringing it forward tonight.
Any other comments? Councillor Dwyer, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm thrilled to see this come forward. It's such a relief for working parents everywhere. You know, my kids did not participate in our full-time childcare. They are both enrolled in our before and after program. And, you know, when I went for the first time during COVID to a fun day to meet the other kindergarten parents of my kid's school, you know, the question was, what do you do for before and after care? And how do I get my kid enrolled in before and after care? And my hope is that, you know, by leveraging additional funding, we can start paying our staff, our wonderful caring staff at the CDC living wages, because as much as we are not paying them minimum wage, they are not making nearly enough. They care for these children like they are their own. They work split shifts. They're long-term part-time employees who have no benefits, no pension, you know, and I think we as employers can do more to support our staff there. And will also help with recruiting new staff. There is a shortage of ECEs within this community, despite efforts by the county to pay for students, prospective students, to go to college to get their ECE certification. There is a shortage. So I'm hoping that, you know, this is the first step of many to try and build some capacity within our organization to offer more spots to fulfill those needs of the community. It's not as simple as just reducing the cost to parents to put their kids there. We actually need to have the ability to create spaces to house these children. So, I mean, by all means, great first step. It's nice to see. But I really do hope that that our next council can make it a priority to try and create a better working environment for our staff to create the capacity that is truly needed within the community.
Anyone else before we leave this? Councillor Alford, go ahead.
I don't know, you keep going in and out. Once in a while I can hear you, and a lot of times I can't. No, this is great news. This is some of the best news for parents of young children that they could be getting. It also facilitates so much in their lives, including being able to seek employment because they haven't been able to afford childcare. So no, everything Chris said, everything Peter said, everything Nikki said, good job.
I agree with my colleagues. Yeah, I look forward to this. It's something we very much need in our community. And I love the fact that we're going to have both buildings open, because the Thurber Street play area, in my view, is the best play park that we've had in terms of outdoor play, and, you know, people doing what kids love to do with rocks and stones and all those things and sticks that Thurber Street has everywhere around it. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, priority issue 8.4, Town Hall Phase 3 renovation furniture, award of tender report 2022-114, and that's again with Director Manhire. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as you indicated, it's we ran a tender for the office furniture and the council furniture for the new phase 2 or phase 3 development at Town Hall. And what we're looking for is to award that tender and then proceed with the selection of the furniture as indicated in there. And the recommendation through the report is to actually have the architects review the available products from the company and confirm the product selection so that it fits with the design features of the rest of the structure.
Councillor Alford?
No, this is exciting because we're going to get not only a new council chamber, but new furniture. So I'm supportive of staff's recommendation, and I'm also supportive of the suggestion that you make that 2 members of council be appointed to sit on the product and style selection committee for this, and I would volunteer, but and so would Chris.
I saw 3 hands up. Councillor Dwyer? Go ahead.
I don't want to volunteer because I just did an office reno in Carleton Place and was advised that my office furniture taste is too expensive for the budget. So I would not be a good influence on this. I do have to say, I mean, fantastic. Oh, away you go. Go pick office furniture. Best of luck. Please, please, please don't pick fabric for those chairs, because if I learned anything from sitting in the chairs in those council chambers is that the fabric on the chairs holds dust like nobody's business. And so please, for the love of God, pick something that is not fabric.
For that, Councillor McGuire, did you have comments to, or just?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Director Manhire. I'd be happy to volunteer for a selection committee.
Okay, so there's your 2.
The gap between the 2 bids is fairly close when we look at the size of the bid. I was just wondering, do we have information on the value for money or the quality, or how was all of that stuff evaluated when these tenders were reviewed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. What we did is we put a tender out stipulating the type of furniture that we were looking for and the quality. So both bidders have similar type quality, and we did select on price. But in looking at it just on a preliminary look, we found that the other supplier, NUA, it was more contemporary, and thought that it where they may have other selection, what they provided was fairly contemporary, and didn't feel that it fit with the space, but price did dictate the recommendation.
Cool. And what is quality when we're looking at office furniture? I've never
It's wood made. It's the guarantee that goes into it. So this office furniture is guaranteed, depending on the type that we choose, from 5 to 10 years. You know, in a heavy use environment. Those were things that we were considering as we looked at the space. It gets a fair amount of use, both in the offices as well as in council chambers. So we wanted to make sure that what we chose was, you know, had sufficient quality, that it was going to, you know, be comfortable and serve the need, as well as last for an extended period of time. And as council can see, it's not necessarily cheap stuff, although we are, you know, outfitting a significant amount of space in the new council chambers as well as the offices. But still, we want to make sure that we get as much value for our dollar as we can.
That's great. The last office I worked in had horrible workstations, so I fully support investing the money we need to invest, because the ergonomic health is so important when people are sitting at the desks all day. So thank you, Director Manhire.
Councillor McKenna, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support the recommendation, Director Manhire. I did have a question regarding the portability of the furniture. It is our hope that people with different abilities will be able to move in and out of the audience or the council area, and that this furniture can be easily moved and stacked and stored if need be, if people are coming in with mobility with either walkers or wheelchairs or motorized scooters. So I just want to know, are they light enough to be moved easily and stackable either at the council chambers or in the audience?
Through the chair, yes, that was part of the stipulation with all of our design, is that it's fully accessible, including the building furniture and the washroom spaces, all of it. So that is part of the stipulation. So when we review the furniture available, the chairs in the audience, as an example, are going to be smaller to allow for movement of the chairs, as well as for fitting people into the space more effectively. So it is all accessible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Manhire. Look forward to the furniture.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Okay, priority issue 8.5 is 2021 consolidated financial statements, and it's with CAO Morris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our treasurer is away this week, so I'm going to fill in. So last week, committee heard from our auditors at KPMG. They presented the audited financial statements and made a few comments. Generally speaking, we're trending in the right direction. We have a strong cash position. One of the things they noted was our tax arrears has been reduced significantly. So that's really encouraging news. Our tangible capital assets have increased, and that's a direct result of the investment this council and previous ones have made in infrastructure. So all in all, the auditor felt we were in good financial shape, and tonight we're simply suggesting to committee that we accept the audited financial statements and that it go to council for acceptance. Thank you.
That will be coming forward at our council meeting tonight. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to priority issue 8.6, bylaw to adopt an election signage policy bylaw. Is that Councillor Director Costello, I believe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll let Councillor McGuire take over. This was one he had wished to put on the agenda, and if he needs to refer back to me, I'm happy to answer any questions or fill in any gaps.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks Director Costello and to Deputy Clerk Bennett for their help getting me the bylaw and answering all the questions over the last week or so. I learned a lot about election signs during the provincial election, and I thought there'd be some updates to our bylaw before we go into our next election. The first thing under general provisions B, right now signs can be put up after the close of nominations for municipal election. I looked at a lot of municipalities in Eastern Ontario and across Ontario, and their timelines for signs range from 30 days to 45 days to 6 weeks. So even if we moved it up to Labor Day, we still have one of the longest signage periods. So I put that out to committee to, if there's a shorter time period, I'd be happy to entertain it, but put Labor Day out as a starting point, just because the longer the signs are out, the more they're blowing around, and the tackier it looks. The second is under C. Right now, no campaign materials should be permitted on municipal property, whether owned or leased, with the only exception being along municipal road allowances. There's a lot of municipalities across Ontario that have been going away from using municipal road allowances. Unfortunately, there's a lot of houses in town, such as my own, where the front yard pretty much is the road allowance. So I suggest we change that to with the only exception being along municipal road allowances directly adjacent to residential properties. And then that gives people a right to an encouragement to express their political engagement on their front yard, but it keeps the signs from building up around town. The next under D, similar adjustment directly adjacent to residential properties for consistency in wording. And then under enforcement, right now it says, should any campaign materials be located on municipally owned property or be located on municipally owned road allowances which do not comply to the provisions of this policy, the same shall be removed forthwith and destroyed. And I suggest we just update that to make it consistent with the $50 fine that's elsewhere in the existing bylaw, so that someone can pay the fine, get their signs back, and we're not just destroying signs and creating more garbage if they're out of compliance. So I'd be happy to take any questions on that or corrections from Director Costello if I've misspoken. But
Councillor Alford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm supportive actually of all your suggested changes, Councillor McGuire. I do think people should be allowed to finish their summer off without the politicking that goes with campaign signage. So I don't object to any of the suggestions that you've made. I do think there is a life cycle, and as we go through, discussions about climate change and things like that, whether signs really are friendly to anything. I think I'm not sure what the alternatives could possibly be, but it is an expensive proposition for people to invest in signage, and most of them are not overly friendly to our environment. So I'm hoping someday somebody will come up with something that's not just, you just throw out after the fact. So no, I like all of your suggestions and I do support them. I would support after Labor Day. I don't know about 30 or 45 days, but certainly we all get tired of campaign signs that are out too early. And my thinking is that anytime after Labor Day, when people have finished enjoying their summer, would be a good time.
Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor McGuire, for bringing this forward. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with changing the date. However, as it stands now, I believe August 19th, which is the deadline to file nomination, is the day when the signs could be put out. I would point out that previous to that, before we changed it, you could nominations opened in May as it is now. It used to be January. So as soon as you filed your papers, you could go at it. And that happened. I know it's happened in June, and you know, there's signs all over the place. So that I totally agree. I mean, if you want to go to a provincial model, I think they have a 28-day period, something like that. But Labor Day is a time when people are going back to work and starting to focus on things. I do have some concerns about the road allowance piece that you have. So that's basically, I think what you're saying here is no signs on any public property. Is that right?
Unless it's directly in front of somebody's house. So
Yeah.
in the situation I'm in, my road allowance is my front yard. So if I wanted to put a sign up,
Yeah. So I have some concerns with that. If you're sort of a new candidate and trying to get some recognition and that sort of thing, I think with the shorter time period that we're talking about, I think it's kind of exciting to have signs around town, and you know, it's incumbent on the candidates to take care of their signs, of course. But so I do have a little worry with that, and but the date I support that wholeheartedly.
Councillor Dwyer?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm supportive of the date change. I don't think as a candidate I was fully prepared for what a full-time job it is, chasing election signs. I mean, I think it's probably the worst part of the campaign, and it really is. It's a full-time job, and like Councillor Alfred said, it's expensive. You know, by the time you start erecting these billboard signs, and hopefully if we're only talking about allowing signs on people's front lawns, then maybe we can't do billboard signs. But it's costly, and you know, it's not a great use of resources, and it's hugely draining. So by all means, if we agree to even the playing field down to, I don't know, 15 days before the election, I think all the better. But I'll accept Labor Day because it's a reasonable deadline. As far as commercial properties, yeah, I'm kind of here nor there. I get what Councillor Brennan's saying, you know, especially if you're new to the community and you don't necessarily have connections to have signs on everybody's front lawn, you know, you may be limited in getting exposure. But that said, I think there's other ways that you can facilitate exposure. And really those commercial properties are often where you see these ginormous billboard signs. So I don't mind, you know, excluding that from the process. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Brennan, did you put your hand up again? Or you just haven't taken it down? Councillor McKenna, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm supportive of the recommendations as well. I would like Director Costello to comment on the fine piece, if she would, versus a fee, please.
Certainly. So right now in our comprehensive sign bylaw, we already have a set fine in place for when signs aren't removed by the deadline. So we already have a $50 fine in place. That's been in place for a while now. However, the two different things, if we're looking at council or if we're looking at having bylaw issue a fine, that's one thing. But if we're also looking at recouping costs because bylaw has to go out to retrieve signs when they haven't been taken down, if council's looking at recouping costs that way, council could consider possibly amending our fee bylaw to adding kind of an administrative fee or retrieval fee, whatever you want to call it. That would be simply an amendment to our fee bylaw and not a set fine that we already have in place, if that makes any sense.
You have your hand up?
Thank you. That does to me, and it helps clarify. With other bylaws in town, if we get a complaint or if the bylaw officer sees something, they'll ask the person to correct it first, and if they don't, then would that be similarly here, that the candidate would be invited to correct their mistake?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I can say from maybe because we are a small municipality that sign retrieval or picking up the signs after the election historically has not been a large issue here.
Councillor Brennan?
Yeah, I think, I correct me if I'm wrong, Councilor McGuire, what you're suggesting is, say someone put a big sign 4x8 or whatever by the garden market, and we pass this bylaw, we're going to come and take it down and then charge them $50 to get his sign back. Is that right?
Yeah, so the previous bylaw or the existing bylaw says that if something's out of compliance, then we're going to take the sign down and destroy it. And I just thought it was counterproductive to destroy the sign. So I don't know what the right number is, or a fine or a fee.
Yeah.
Really particular to me. It's just, let's give them an outlet to get their sign back, and maybe we get some cost recovery for our bylaw.
So, okay, I'm still not comfortable with it. I'm not comfortable with having sort of bylaw going around as sign police during an election when we have a democratic process going on. So no, I'm not comfortable with that.
Well, I just want to clarify that this is existing bylaw. This is not new. The new part is
No.
that we're not destroying the signs. We're giving the signs back if a fee is paid or a fine is paid.
Yeah,
So
I understand.
that we're not increasing the enforcement or making any of that more harsh.
Yeah, through the chair, I understand that. But the new part is, it's the place where the sign is. So if the sign is at the garden market, as I said, then you're out of compliance, and you're going to get fined if we have to go pick it up. So we have people running around to make sure there's no signs where they're not supposed to be.
Councillor Alford?
Well, I think that Councillor McKenna made clear, and Director Costello agreed, that the candidate would be asked to move it. If they still do not, then that action could be taken. But they were given an opportunity to move it off municipal property before there was any fee or any of that. So yeah, I don't see it. I don't see a huge change to this existing policy.
Councillor Dwyer?
Thanks. And I mean, maybe to solve that problem, we just add some language, if we're doing an amendment anyways, to add something about, voluntary and compliance in advance of hard action. But hypothetically, Carrie, when we get into, and this is more for future candidates' knowledge, but when we get into charging fines and fees associated with election signs, does that get declared as part of your election financing?
That's a great question. My quick answer would be yes, but I would like to look into that, and I will advise all of you the answer to that. But my quick answer without thinking it through would be yes. Having said that, I will reiterate that there always will be, and it's the practice we currently do with any bylaw enforcement, is there's always the voluntary compliance first, that step taken with anybody, regardless of the offense. So, but I will look into that, Councillor Dwyer. That's a great question.
Mr. McGuire, did you have something you wanted to add?
Sure. Yeah, just it's definitely an intention of these changes to have less election signs in town. I think more or less they're a single-use plastic. As Councillor Dwyer said, they can get blown around, and it's not. I don't think it's the best tool to get the name out there, but I also don't think it's the time to get rid of them completely. So it's a conscientious effort to reduce the number of signs without eliminating signs altogether.
I think we've all said and that's a great way to end, Councillor McGuire. Thank you. It was a good summing up of what I think we agree to. So look forward to fewer signs. Yes, Director Costello.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I'm just looking for some clear direction. I kind of see three different items that popped up during discussion. The first being, it seemed that everybody was okay with the recommendation of amending the date to Labor Day. I didn't see consensus regarding the municipal road allowance discussion. And then there was, I'm trying to think of what the third the third item was regarding the enforcement. And I think we came to somewhat of an agreement, some minor wording changes regarding voluntary compliance. But looking for some direction or some type of majority on the issue regarding road allowance.
Okay, raise your hand if you're okay with the road allowance being used for signage. Just two of us, okay.
Well, Madam Chair, sorry, for clarity, can perhaps Councillor McGuire restate what the preferred change is, and then we can vote on it?
That would be helpful. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor McGuire.
Okay, so in general provisions of the bylaw, section C, no campaign material shall be permitted on municipal property, whether owned or leased, with the only exception being along municipal road allowances directly adjacent to residential properties. This includes, but is not limited to, the following locations, and then it goes back into the bylaw as written. And then under section D of the general provisions, there's campaign material shall be permitted along municipal road allowances directly adjacent to residential properties, provided the following exceptions are respected, and then it goes back into the existing bylaw.
Okay, I think we have our direction, and that will be coming forward at our council meeting this afternoon, or this evening, I guess I should say now. The last,
Madam Chair?
yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. So was there consensus on a fee versus a fine and the amount? I didn't get that.
Councillor Dwyer?
Thank
So-
you, Madam Chair. I think I need more information, mostly pertaining about whether or not it has to be declared as part of your campaign finances. I think we did come to a conclusion that it was appropriate to make the change to allow for voluntary compliance. But perhaps if there is a change to whatever structure we have, be it fee or fine, then perhaps a staff report could come back with some options and analyze that. And to clarify, the difference between a fee and a fine is that one is verified through provincial offenses. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
The fine currently in place has been, and it's a $50 fine. However, so you are correct. If we can go ahead this evening and pass this amending bylaw. We will go ahead and find out that information, Councillor Dwyer, regarding the election finances. However, that would be a separate piece. It would be under our fee bylaw. So we can go ahead and pass this tonight without that piece in it because it forms part of a different bylaw.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, I think we've got it.
Thank you.
Okay, priority issue 8.7, bylaw to authorize exclusivity agreement, and that's with Economic Development and Tourism Manager Julia Crowder. Welcome back, Julia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we were asking for council's direction to enter into an exclusivity agreement with regards to the former water treatment plant.
Alfred, go ahead. Councillor Alfred, go ahead.
Thank you. I saw CEO Morris's hand up, so he may want to comment before I chime in here.
Go ahead, CEO Morris.
Yes, so just to augment the request here, it's the exclusivity agreement would be with the Samir group of companies to negotiate a path forward for redevelopment of the site. And so we'll come, if approved, we'll initiate those discussions and come back with a path forward to redevelop the site. But what we need is an exclusive arrangement to negotiate with one of the proponents that submitted a bid.
Councillor Alfred, now did you want to say something?
Yeah, just no, I'm supportive of this. This is a known, reputable developer that we have struggled with the old water treatment plant property for a number of years now. It's a complex site. And so I think in awarding this exclusivity to Samur group of companies, that we can take another step forward in terms of potentially getting worthwhile development on that property. And because they are local, that makes some of the processes perhaps easier. But I'm supportive of giving the Samur group of companies this undertake. Now, we're a long way from getting anything on that site, but it moves the ball forward in terms of having a serious local developer take a look at this site and see what may be possible and what the challenges will be for both him and for the town. So I am supportive of staff's recommendation.
Councillor Brennan?
Yeah, I echo that. And I would point out too that this particular local developer has a proven track record of developing sites that no one else really would look at, i.e. the old high school, the old RCA plant, and now the Settlers Ridge Center. So anyone with that type of vision, I want to talk to, and I'm glad we're going to approve this tonight.
Okay, thumbs up around, nodding heads. Thank you. So that will come forward at our council meeting this evening as well. Could I have a motion for adjournment? Councillor Brennan and seconded by Councillor Alfred. Recommend that the committee adjourn its proceedings at 6:12 and stand so adjourned until the next duly committee meeting. No, 7:12. All in favor?
Can we take a 5-minute break before council starts, Madam Chair?
Yes, and Carrie, you're going to move us into another room so we can do some prep for the.
I believe, let me just check. I believe that the live streaming service just has us on kind of standby right now, so that anybody watching, I'm just going to verify that. Oh, yeah, he is going to move us to the in camera.
Who, you and Lorraine, or all of us?
Nope.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being patient and waiting for us. We were in recess to have some discussion about what we were going to be bringing forward tonight. So thank you for your patience. Welcome to our council meeting agenda on Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022. And I'm going to start this afternoon or this evening with the land acknowledgement. On August 2nd, we acknowledge that this sacred land on which Smiths Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We're grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We're also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. Also, I would like to add bylaw 7.4, bylaw to authorize execution exclusivity agreement with Sumir Group of Companies, and bylaw 7.5, bylaw to amend bylaw 8998, 2017, being a bylaw to adopt an election signage policy. There are no announcements this evening. And are there any disclosure of monetary interest? And I must apologize. I should have asked that at our committee of whole meeting. I left that out. I'm sorry. In this meeting, is there any disclosure of monetary interest? Seeing none. We have no delegations. We have no adoption of minutes. Are there any reports this evening? No reports either. Okay. Our first bylaw is bylaw 7.1 with Councillor Alford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to lift a reserve respecting the property known as Block 128 of Plan 27M23 be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Moved by Councillor Alford and seconded by Councillor McKenna. Bylaw to lift a reserve respecting the property known as Block 128 of Plan 27M23. Be read, taken as read the first time and taken read the second time. All in favor? Discussion, Councillor Alford.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. As discussed at our last week's Committee of the Whole, this is a 1 foot, is 1 foot of the road allowance that was set aside in 2006 for phase 1 of Bellary Farms. A bylaw is it's necessary housekeeping to remove the reserve now.
Third reading.
Yes, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to lift a reserve respecting the property known as Block 128 of Plan 27M23 be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10366-2022.
Moved by Councillor Alford, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to lift a reserve respecting the property known as Block 128 of Plan 27M23 be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10366-2022. All in favor? Good, thank you, carried. 7.2, bylaw to authorize execution of a transfer payment agreement with the provincial government respecting the water tower replacement project with Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Alford that a bylaw to authorize execution of a transfer payment agreement with the provincial government respecting the water tower replacement project be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Moved by Councillor McKenna and seconded by Councillor Alford that a bylaw to authorize execution of a transfer payment agreement with the provincial government respecting the water tower replacement project be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. Discussion, Councillor McKenna?
Yes, Madam Chair. This is a string of grants and funding arrangements that through our staff's hard work have been able to secure. This is a transfer payment agreement with the federal provincial governments in the amount of $3.6 million for the replacement of our water treatment plant. It doesn't meet 100% of the costs that, as we know, going forward, but is a huge benefit. So this is we're going to formalize the arrangement with the funder by signing off on this transfer payment agreement.
Moved by Councillor McKenna and seconded by Councillor Alford that a bylaw to authorize execution of a transfer payment agreement with the provincial government respecting the water tower replacement project be now read third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10367-2022. All in favor? Thanks, all carried. Bylaw 7.3 is with Councillor Alford again.
You're on mute, Councillor Alford.
Sorry, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Brennan that a bylaw to authorize an exemption to procurement bylaw 7850-2004 respecting the hardscape components of the Russell Street parquet be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Moved by Councillor Alford and seconded by Councillor Brennan that a bylaw to authorize an exemption to procurement bylaw 7850-2004 respecting the hardscape components of the Russell Street parquet be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. Discussion, Councillor Alford?
All in favor?
All in favor? Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Alford?
Certainly. We discussed this at the committee just before this council meeting, and this is authorizing a sole source supply for the hardscape at the parquet, which is the street along Shoppers, beside Shoppers on Russell. Kavanaugh is currently working here, and there's efficiencies and to have them be the sole source. It also, in this report, deals with the form of the hardscape being a colored concrete brushed finish. And this project will also allow for a new sidewalk down that segment of the street. And this was staff's recommendation, and council agreed earlier in the committee of the whole.
Thank you.
All of the costs, I will say too, Madam Chair, all of the costs are being paid for by the My Main Street grant that the Economic Development and the Downtown Business Association applied for and were successful in getting just over $98,000.
Thank you. Third reading.
Third reading, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Brennan, that a bylaw to authorize an exemption to procurement bylaw 7850-2004 respecting the hardscape components of the Russell Street parquet be now read a third time and finally passed, signed and sealed and numbered 10368-2022.
Moved by Councillor Alford and seconded by Councillor Brennan that a bylaw to authorize an exemption to procurement bylaw 7850-2004 respecting the hardscape components of the Russell Street parquet be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10368-2022.
Madam Chair, I think Councillor McGuire had his hand up while you were reading there. Did you?
I'm sorry, Councillor McGuire, go ahead.
Thanks, Councillor Brennan. I'd like to ask for a recorded vote on this one. I think it's not very often that a council gets to make a decision that has design implications. And when we made decisions on Becker Street, we chose the pavers in the corners. When we made the design decisions for the town square, we chose the pavers around the bandstand and through the park. There's a relatively modest fee of $30,000 to put pavers in the parquet, and we're choosing to go with the colored concrete. Smoky is not an adjective I ever want to use to describe our downtown, and yet we're putting smoky concrete, which will create a heat island effect. And if there's any repairs that need to be done underneath it, it will all need to be ripped up instead of the pavers have removed and replaced. So I think this is short-sighted, and for that reason, I will, after this, rest my case.
A recorded vote has been asked. Director Costello, are you ready to do that? A recorded vote has been asked for.
So regarding bylaw 10368-2022, if council members could either respond with a yay or a nay. Chair Alford? Or sorry, Councillor Alford?
Yay.
Chair Allen?
Yay.
Councillor Brennan?
Yay.
Councillor Dwyer?
Yay.
Councillor McGuire?
Okay.
Councillor McKenna?
Yay.
And Mayor Panko is absent. Carried.
Thank you, Councillor. Or thank you, Carrie. Bylaw 7.4 is with Councillor McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was 7.4 with Councillor McKenna.
Yes, it is, Madam Chair, I believe.
Okay, sorry, go ahead, Councillor McKenna. And who?
Okay, I'm just bringing it up, Madam Chair. Thank you.
And was a second by Councillor Alford.
I think it was Councillor Dwyer.
Councillor.
Well, either is fine. I'll just read it to you right now. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Alford then, that a bylaw to authorize execution exclusivity agreement with Samir Group of Companies to negotiate terms related to the redevelopment of the former water treatment plant located at 25 Old Mill Road be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Moved by Councillor McKenna and seconded by Councillor Alford that a bylaw to authorize execution exclusivity agreement with Samir Group of Companies to negotiate terms related to the redevelopment of the former water treatment plant located at 25 Old Mill Road be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Discussion, Councillor McKenna?
Yes, Madam Chair, as we know, the town went out for tender on the redevelopment of the former water treatment plant. The Samir Group of Companies bid on or put a proposal forward, and the town, would like to enter into an exclusive arrangement with them over the next few months to work out the details of what that potential site could look like.
Thank you for that. Third reading?
Yes, that a bylaw to, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Alford, that a bylaw to authorize execution of an exclusivity agreement with the Samir Group of Companies to negotiate terms related to the redevelopment of the former water treatment plant located at 25 Old Mill Road be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10369-2022.
By Councillor McKenna and seconded by Councillor Alford that a bylaw to authorize execution exclusivity agreement with Samir Group of Companies to negotiate terms related to the redevelopment of the former water treatment plant located at 25 Old Mill Road be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10369-2022. All in favor? Thank you. Carried. Our last bylaw 7.5, is with Councillor McGuire.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Alford that a bylaw to amend bylaw 8998-2017, being a bylaw to adopt an election signage policy for the town of Smith Falls, be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Moved by Councillor McGuire and seconded by Councillor Alford that a bylaw to amend bylaw 8998-2017, being a bylaw to adopt an election signage policy for the town of Smith Falls, be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Discussion, Councillor McGuire?
Thanks, Madam Chair. So this is going to make 3 changes to the bylaw. The first is that election signs will not be posted until after Labor Day. The second is that campaign signs will only be allowed on municipal road allowances directly adjacent to residential properties. And the third is changing the enforcement. In the past, if signs were out of compliance with the bylaw, they would be removed and destroyed. And there's going to be some kind of fee or fine and opportunity to get them back before a fee or fine is levied. So hopefully this will improve the upcoming election season. So
All in favor? I may be doing this wrong. Sorry. Third reading, please.
So moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Alfred that a bylaw to amend bylaw 8998-2017 being a bylaw to adopt an election signage policy for the town of Smith Falls be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10370-2022.
Moved by Councillor McGuire and seconded by Councillor Alfred that a bylaw to amend bylaw 8998-2017 being a bylaw to adopt an election signage policy for the town of Smith Falls be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10370-2022. All in favor? Carried. First miscellaneous motion of business is 8.1 award of tender Town Hall Phase 3 furniture, and it's with Councillor McGuire.
Sorry, Madam Chair, my browser just crashed. Maybe can we do 8.2 and then come back while I load the agenda?
8.2 is Canada-wide early learning and childcare. Moved by Councillor Dwyer, seconded by Councillor McKenna. Go ahead, Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls be enrolled in the Canada-wide early learning and childcare system offered by the provincial government through partnership with the federal government.
Discussion, Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In order for our residents and participants in our CDC program, our early childcare learning program, to participate in the quote $10 a day daycare option, we have to pass this resolution and indicate that we are going to administer the $10 a day program. So we're very excited to be in a position to offer this. We're hoping it'll be the first in several steps to create additional capacity for childcare services for those within our community.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Dwyer and seconded by Councillor McKenna that the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls be enrolled in the Canada-wide early learning and childcare system offered by the provincial government through partnership with the federal government. All in favor? Thank you. Carried. Councillor McGuire, do you want me to go ahead, or are you
good? If
Councillor Dwyer has 8.1 award of tender Town Hall Phase 3 furniture.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that council award tender 22-CS-2022 for the supply of office furniture to Homes and Brackle in the amount not to exceed $79,459.07, including non-refundable HST.
Discussion, Councillor McGuire.
So this is for furniture in the town hall. Director Manhire has assured us it's going to be ergonomic and stylish and high quality and last for another 50 years. So exciting to get to try this stuff out soon.
Moved by Councillor McGuire and seconded by Councillor McKenna that council award tender 22-CS-2022 for the supply of office furniture of Homes and Brackle in the amount not to exceed $79,459.07, including non-refundable HST. All in favor? Carried. Our last motion is with Councillor Dwyer, 8.3, 2021 consolidated financial statements.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls receive the 2021 consolidated financial statements as prepared by KPMG LLP.
Discussion, Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you. So every year, our auditors come and provide us with a overview of our financial statements from the previous year and give recommendations on how we can improve our financial state situation, or provide accolades to our Treasury Department for the wonderful job they do. And I'm very pleased to say that this year, as always, it was all accolades for Janet Kazil and her team in finance. So thank you, Janet, for making our jobs so much easier at Council. We are pleased to receive our positive financial statements in accordance with the Municipal Act.
Moved by Councillor Dwyer, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smiths Falls receive the 2021 consolidated financial statements as prepared by KPMG LLP, and all in favor. And thank you for those kind words. We couldn't agree with you more. Janet is a treasure for sure. Are there any inquiries or announcements this afternoon? Councillor Alfred?
Just one, Madam Chair, and that's something to look forward to. We've talked about the construction on Beckwith Street. We've talked about the parquet. We've talked about the town hall, and the downtown Smiths Falls Business Association, along with support from the town, is announcing their October 1st street party. It's called Back on Beckwith, and there's going to be something going on from noon until 10 at night. So I encourage people to watch the Downtown Business Association's webpage for more details as they are released. But it's time for us, certainly as a community, to celebrate getting Beckwith Street back and seeing COVID in the back, hopefully the rearview mirror. And it's time we had some fun.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other announcements? Councillor Brennan, go ahead.
Yeah, just something more immediate this weekend at the Heritage House Museum. It's going to be an exciting weekend through the Arts and Culture Council. They're hosting a public art event, and it's going to be the Rideau Artist of the Year for 2022. And that's Saturday, August 6th, 10 to 5, and Sunday 10 to 4, and also on Saturday there's an artisan market, and I'm told there's music as well. So everyone head down. This is a regional artists from all over the place. They're coming. It's a juried competition, and the winner's going to receive $1,000. So I've seen some of the posts online. It's some talented people coming. So everyone head out to their Heritage House this weekend.
Yes, it should be a great time. Any other announcements, inquiries? No? Thank you. I need a motion for adjournment. It's moved by Councillor Dwyer and seconded by Councillor Brennan that this council adjourn its proceedings at 7:45 and stand so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council. All in favor? Thank you for tolerating me this afternoon.